Welcome to the Veronica Edwards Show, where we have fun, financial conversations that everyone listening can apply to their personal and professional life. I'm your host, Veronica Edwards, CPA, and today we are back season 6, completely independent and sponsored by my business, Balance Virtually LLC, that provides accounting and consulting services. So always at the start of the show, I want to shout out the V team, our loyal listeners and followers. We are growing so strong, over 12,000 views on YouTube throughout our long videos and our shorts. So thank you guys so much for supporting. We do have a goal to try to reach 100 YouTube subscribers, which we're up to about 67. And we just started back in March. So I'm super excited. And I know that this show will push us over the edge. So today I'm excited to welcome today's guest, Ms. Cameron Kempson, M.Ed., the CEO and founder of Centered Resources LLC, a disability-led education and consulting firm that's changing the way organizations think about inclusion and belonging. She is one of my favorite consulting clients through Mountain BizWorks. She's a very quick study in accounting and bookkeeping. So without further ado, I'd like to formally welcome Cameron. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Veronica. I've been so excited about being here. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. I was telling Cameron, she has such a soothing voice. Anyone that knows me, I'm wild and hyper and doing all things. And then I get on a Zoom with Cameron and I'm like, I feel my zen, like I calm down. So Cameron, this is your first time on the show. And we always ask first time guests to tell us about you, where you're from, what brought you to Western North Carolina, and of course, what inspired you to start your business, Centered Resources LLC.
Yeah, so I'm actually a native of Asheville, if you can believe it. Born and raised here. And when I went away to college, my sophomore year, someone gave me a brochure for a camp for people with autism out of Chapel Hill. And I spent a summer doing that. And Veronica, it completely changed the trajectory of my life. I transferred colleges, went to grad school because I knew I wanted to be in the disability world, but really wanted to focus on inclusion and people having access to living the lives that they self-determine. So I came back to Asheville because I love the mountains and also wanted to give back myself to the community that raised me. And over the years, I've worked for school systems, for-profit businesses. I started a nonprofit at one point. But post-COVID, I came into a season in my life where I just felt like in order to have more balance, I really need to be my own boss and wanted to have a non-traditional work schedule and be remote. So started thinking about how can I transition into that kind of career? And the one way that immediately came to mind was being a consultant because I have so many unique life experiences personally and professionally in the disability world that thought that I would have a lot to offer. So I started moving in that direction, began working with people with disabilities who just rounded out my dream and my passion in ways that I never could have imagined. And so last year started a disability-led consulting and education firm, and here we are today. So, yeah.
Wow. And I love that story because you have over 35 years of experience. So I'm sure you started out your career the traditional route, working for someone. And I know just being a few years younger than you, it's hard to get out of that comfort zone. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more about that journey into entrepreneurship, because even though with all the experience, there's still a lot of self-doubt. And there's a lot of things that you don't know. But before we jump into you starting Centered Resources LLC, I always have to bring it back to me a little bit. Cameron, I would love for you to share how we met, our origin story, what your first impression of me was, darling, because I know I'm not your typical accountant. So yes, if you could share how we met.
Yeah, gladly. When I saw that question, I was like, yay. Um, so, Joanna Haggerty is my business coach through Mountain Biz Works. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Mountain Biz Works because they have been amazing for my journey. I am such an atypical entrepreneur. And because I'm running a purpose driven company, for profit company, I needed and wanted some people to support me who understood that. And Mountain Biz Works, both through their coursework and through the coaching, it's just been amazing. So Joanna and I were working together, and I said, I need to move beyond the spreadsheet. I need to really understand how I need to be set up my accounting and my numbers and a better fiscal sense of my business. So she connected the two of us through Mountain Biz Works. And um, here's what I found about Veronica on my first day. Your energy and your talent and enthusiasm for what you do is so inspiring and so infectious that even myself as an introvert, I was like, yeah, this is great, getting into the vibe. But also at the same time, the beauty of who you are, Veronica, and I think I mentioned this at the end of our first session together, it is really hard for people who do not work in the education field to do their jobs well and also be expected to educate or coach other people because being an educator doesn't come naturally for everyone. And the beauty of that first session with you was that, yeah, you were excited and inspired and moving me along, but you also took the time to observe, like, how was I learning and what were my questions? And how are you going to teach this information in a way that's meaningful and relevant to me? And I think that is a gift. And you have found a niche for yourself, applying skills that you have that not many people can do. So kudos to you. It was a great first experience. And that's why we're still together, right?
We're still together. Thank you, Cameron, for that ad. I will be using that for balance virtually. But yeah, I love teaching and I love teaching people like yourself because you're a sponge and
Um,
you ask questions and you go on YouTube and you listen to everything that I ask you to do. And you've been doing a great job. So again, a little plug, one Mountain BizWorks. If you're in Western North Carolina, there's so many counties. I can't remember how many, but I've been coaching with Mountain BizWorks now for 5 years. So has Joanna, probably
wow.
longer than me, but there's like 50 plus coaches, all areas. If you guys need help in marketing and accounting, just if you're a very specific area, there's some people in our area that work specifically with brewers, like with it being
Mhm.
so many breweries in the area. So that's wonderful. So yes, please check out mountainbizworks.org. But now I want us to talk about Centered Resources LLC. I would love for you to tell us, Cameron, who are your clients? Who are your partners? Are you hiring? You have this mission driven business, and I love that it's not a nonprofit. I like that it's a
Mm.
for profit, possibly might be a B Corp in the future. They talk about those B Corps that is a mesh of mission based, but it's for profit. So tell us more of your business and how we can support your business.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I'd be glad to do that. Yeah, we are a unique business model. When I first started thinking about it, because I had started a nonprofit in the past, I really wasn't sure I wanted to go down that road again. But also in the human services world, it is really easy to undercut or devalue expertise and professionalism financially, right? Because we're so
Mhm.
limited on the funds that are out there.
Right.
And I did not want to get into a nonprofit space again where it was easy to say, this is a group of people with disabilities. They're in a nonprofit world. This is health and human services. Okay, we're only going to pay X amount of dollars for this type of consulting and subject matter expertise. I decided, I took a big leap and I said, I'm going to do a for profit and we're going to build a new business model that really demonstrates how a business can be disability led, fully inclusive and accessible mutually among the people who work for it, but also create it competitively so that the rates that we're paying our contractors are comparable with people out there in the field, that they get to self-determine the jobs that they want to take, and that it's a non-traditional work environment, right?
I
We're
love it.
remote, we're consultants, we're group facilitators, we work our own schedules. That has not always been the case for people with disabilities or
Mhm.
people who have family members with disabilities. And as we know, our lives are not in a box between 9 and 5. This
At
is
all.
only when I work, right? We have different rhythms and routines. And so Centered Resources has really taken that into account as I have focused on how do I want this to look. So, in terms of who we are, we've got 13 consultants, and we
Wow.
bring a really diverse spectrum of skills, capacities, and experiences, which means when we work with companies, businesses, organizations, we can craft our consulting team to meet the priorities and concerns and requests of our clients. So we engage in group facilitation, we do strategic planning, we talk about inclusion at every level of the business. Currently, our bigger projects are programs that we're doing with contracts. Our really exciting kind of cornerstone project is we are the administrator for the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities advocacy education program. So their
Wow.
statewide education program, we administer that, and it is fully facilitated by people with intellectual and developmental disabilities or family members of people with IDD.
Wow.
So
Is
it
your
is
business the first of its kind to do this?
no, it's
Okay.
not. But it is. There are very few of us out there that are actually fully leading programming, program governance, program evaluation, all by people with lived experience.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's we're doing that, and the beauty of it is we go out and share that story. We have other states now who are interested in replicating this advocacy education program. So we are working closely with the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities to build a replicable model that other states can then come learn from us and access. And so
Wow.
grateful to the council for their willingness to think proactively and innovatively about other
Yes.
states accessing this. So um, we also are currently engaged in a new curriculum, a new educational initiative with a local partner, First WNC, a nonprofit here in Western North Carolina that supports people with disabilities. We agreed that there needed to be some curriculum and content written by people with disabilities to support peer mentoring for people with IDD. So we gathered a group of people together. We have written this beautiful curriculum, and we are currently piloting that with our first group of peer mentors. So, yeah, we enjoy the education piece, but we also really want to get our hands deeper into that consulting role. And we can talk a little bit about that later. Yeah.
Yeah. So now what does IDD stand for again? I'm sorry.
Intellectual and developmental disabilities. And typically, what that means by definition is that those are people who, at birth or in early childhood, were given a diagnosis of having some sort of developmental disability that has impacted them along their life. It's not someone who has had an accident later in life and then becomes disabled. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I'm just wondering because anyone listening is like, wow, this is so innovative. Not as many people have done this type of business. How did you get your first client?
Yeah, it's always all about relationships. I really feel like relationships are key, and
Yes.
I want to highlight again the niche of our team being people with relevant and authentic experience r- really stands out in our field. Now we're small, and which is one reason why we're starting to do some of these opportunities like this podcast, because I think people just don't know we're out there and that
Right.
there are groups like us out there who can support this idea of transitioning values into action
Uh-huh.
or values into workplace culture. So relationships have been really the key way that we've taken in new contract work. Because people now are seeing the value of having that voice of lived experience at the table and being experts at what we do.
Absolutely. And, I work with different organizations that do peer support and lived experience, but you hear that more for people that have like an addiction
Mhm.
or they've come out of incarceration. But it's so important in all of these areas, like you said, the relationships. I was just on a panel last night. A local organization up here called Building Bridges, and they're
Yeah.
all about. Are you familiar with Building Bridges? I
Yes.
was their thought leader, and so this organization has 9 weeks where they have sessions and they're talking about, the criminal justice system, or as they were calling it, the criminal punishment system,
Mhm.
and having different people with lived experiences. So last night we had someone that was a former DA, someone that is fighting to end the death penalty, and then someone that served 7 years in jail for a nonviolent offense, but a
Wow.
man of color. And that's
Mhm.
the first thing that he said. He went on 13 job interviews and everybody told him no, but it was because of a relationship that he
Mhm.
was able to get a job without even having to do the application first, but just giving that person that opportunity. So I love that you're doing that because a lot of times people can say, oh, when it's Disability Awareness Month or some of these things that go viral, but they're
Right.
not giving people the opportunity.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up because, I think the the struggle that I've experienced as an ally and a family member of someone with disabilities is that when we talk about inclusion or you hear conversations on inclusion currently in our society, it's focused around race, gender, sexual orientation, and
Mhm.
yet
Mhm.
disability seems to be pushed further and further behind.
Yes.
And I think part of that is because the prevalence of disability is out there, if you look around you in your close circle, you probably know someone with a disability. You have the
Mhm.
potential for becoming disabled or as you age having a disability. And we don't often know or think about that voice is important in workplace culture. That voice is important in
Yes.
societal culture. And us speaking on behalf of people with disabilities is not how we should be doing it. We should be doing it like building bridges, right? Where we're
Mhm.
sitting in circles and groups of people who can share that lived experience and really tell the story of what it is and what it's like. And so I think the beauty of an education and consulting firm that's disability led is that then we can come into a workplace environment or a managed care organization or a nonprofit and say, let's hold space for what this conversation needs to be.
Mhm.
What kinds of questions do you have? You know, there oftentimes people feel awkward about how do I talk to somebody with disabilities?
Yes.
And that's understandable. And we know that because we've experienced it. And so we come in and we like to call it, we hold space for self-reflection, for company reflection, for assessment, and for very important, crucial conversations around what it means to be included and belong. And then let's look at how does disability become part of leadership? How does disability become part of employment? How does
Mhm.
disability become a part of your operationalized systems for programming? We forget all those things. We think it's just about supporting the person who's walking in the door. That's
Yep.
not that's not the only aspect of inclusion or accessibility. It's mutually being engaged as people.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Well, I have a silly question. What is
please.
the true definition of a disability? And what are some
Oh,
of the disabilities that some of your staff have and
mhm.
some of the potential new employees that you can have or other people that you serve?
Sure. So, I will share how I hear people in my company define disability. Um, as people who are disabled, they define it as some action or potential or physical impact on who they are that may create a different experience or a different way of perceiving things or a different way of moving or communicating than other people around them. But that doesn't always mean it creates limits for them. And that those limits that are created can then become, um, should not be viewed as can't do,
Right, a
but should be viewed
hindrance.
as how do we create mutual access so we can all be here together?
Yes.
Yeah.
And definitely before we go, I came up with a different tip that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
How can small business owners, but also bigger corporations, how can we implement some of those inclusions, you like as you mentioned, for folks that have disability? What are things as me balanced virtually? I'm working with people virtually on Zoom, but are
Yeah.
there other things I can be doing or other small organizations other than just hiring somebody? But how do we make our businesses more inclusive?
Sure. So, my first answer is always going to be education. Educate
Yes.
yourselves, right? So I will do a spotlight on our website, centeredresources.com. One of the things that we are starting to do is create resources that are one-sheeters or videos or recorded webinars that are either free or at a nominal fee so that people can go on their own time and educate themselves about
Mhm.
what are the small steps we can take. But also, I encourage your listeners to look at some of the activities and opportunities that we offer as consultants because it doesn't mean a big $10,000 package where we're sitting down and having very formal conversations. It
Right.
can mean a one-time audit of the forms that you're using, or let's have a 30-minute conversation about what are our next steps and how do we onboard our employees? Or
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
interested in employing people with disabilities. What resources are available in our state for me to prepare myself? So those kinds of smaller opportunities are out there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And one little nugget I want to share too, I still do the books for our the church school that my son used to go to, but we're still affiliated with the church, Asheville Pisgah Christian School. And we went through some turnover over the summer where our office manager left for other opportunities, and we are very happy, for her and her family. But it left a hole for our office manager. So we hired a mom that has a set of twins, I think, that are in kindergarten, a son in second grade, and she's deaf.
Ah,
And I thought, how are we going to have a front desk person at an elementary school, middle school? It goes from pre-K all the way up to eighth grade. We got a phone that has captions on it,
mhm,
and we put different things in place. She does have a hearing aid, so she can read lips, but if her head is turned,
mhm,
she can't hear. And so then we have signs on the door saying, please speak slowly and clearly, to
yeah,
Miss So and so to allow. And I thought in the beginning, there's no way this is going to work. And it's been working, and it's been working
yeah,
since August. And she feels a sense of like pride because she hasn't been able to work since she had her kids. And
mhm,
it's great for her. She's in the same school with her kids. She works just 3 days out the week. It works out for us. We have somebody else that's in. And I'm like, "Okay, we could do more of this." And then also it's
great.
inspiring the children to be more considerate and more kind because now they're thinking first. They're not just coming in being loud and talking very quickly. So since I met you, that's happened. And I was like, I feel like I'm doing my part some, but there's more that we could definitely do.
Yeah.
And Cameron, just like that, we're already to the end of the show. So I would love
Um,
for you to again share your website, social media,
yes.
ways that people can support the great work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Yes, our website is centeredresources.com. We are on Facebook as Centered Resources and LinkedIn as Centered Resources. And we are just interested in starting to build some consulting partnerships, both in Western North Carolina and beyond. So please give us a call. We are more than happy to do a free consultation just to understand where you are and what you're interested in. So thank
Yes.
you.
And another plug I'm gonna say, because I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you. My husband works for Goodwill Corporate Center. They're always doing he's a skills instructor, so they go to the high schools and they work with early college with AB Tech, but they they're always looking for interns, and different companies to partner and to come to some of the events they have. So I think your business would be amazing for that because, like you said, a lot of people might not know about it. And
Mhm.
so sometimes it's just boots on the ground, going to some of those
Mhm.
networking events. But I think that would be awesome if you were to be able to partner with Goodwill. So don't get me wrong, I'll be having you going to everybody all over the
I am all
area.
for that. I really appreciate your energy, enthusiasm around this because, it's something I'm passionate about and feel very purpose driven about. And it is so delightful to be connecting with people outside of my disability world, the disability
Yes.
sector, and really making those meaningful opportunities for conversation. So, thank you so much for scheduling a podcast that actually opens the door to other people hearing what this is all about and taking their own small steps. So,
And I can just listen to Cameron all day long. She has a beautiful voice. I'm like, Cameron, you're so soothing. So thank you so much for joining today, sharing your brilliance with the listeners and showing that you can have a mission-based business, but it be for profit. Because a lot of times people don't want all that transparency and the government and everybody all up in your business, and they don't have to be at times. And to your point, you're still working with the same partners that you probably
mhm.
would have if you were non for profit. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thanks to everyone listening and tuning into the Veronica Edwards Show. Please remember to subscribe on YouTube, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcast, Spotify, anywhere that plays music and shows so you don't miss an episode. And until next time, stay balanced and financially savvy.